Okay, good evening. Thank you everyone for coming along to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. Let's start with item number 1, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies from Councillor Vincent.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2, appointment of substitute members.
Thank you, Chair. I have Councillor Knight appointed as substitute member for Councillor Vincent.
Excellent. You're very welcome, Councillor Knight. Thank you for coming. Item 3, declaration of interest. Has anyone got anything they would like to declare? Nope. Okay. And that takes us on to item 4, the minutes, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of April. Do we have a proposer, Councillor Williams, and seconder, Councillor Friend? All those in favour of the minutes? Excellent. Thank you very much. Item 5, decisions of the Cabinet relating to recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Chair. As members will be aware, the Cabinet considered the 2 recommendations from Scrutiny at its meeting. In terms of the record of decision, the Cabinet opted to do the following. In respect of the Strategic Performance Report 3rd quarter, the change of indicator SP005D, number of outstanding fire risk assessment remedials, they agreed to that be changed from number outstanding to number overdue, as the committee requested. In respect of the Kersney Cafe and Billiards Room business plan, they have accepted that a more detailed report be provided to Cabinet and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee containing full financial figures and targets for the year. The second recommendation, they have acknowledged this was the request for quarterly reporting and have noted that the Section 151 officer's quarterly financial update report will provide this information and therefore it won't be provided in a separate report. So those are the recommendations and what Cabinet's doing with them.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. So the changes to the strategic report we'll see later on in item 13. And then, yeah, so partly accepted, partly declined. So we can do what we can do here, can't we? And I did urge Cabinet, full council, to take all of our recommendations on board, but maybe they'll take that recommendation informally. We'll never know. Any comments to make on that before we move on? We don't want to get into a circular argument, I suppose, of commenting on comments, but fine. Okay. Item 6 then, issues referred to the committee by public petition, council, cabinet or another committee. There are none. Item 7, notice of forthcoming key decisions. Just a reminder to everyone, maybe those that are new or just because it's a new committee as such. This is not necessarily for debate, but just a notice of what is coming. So if there's anything specifically you want on the agenda, now would be a good time to point that out. Also, just for reference, I suppose, if there is anything you want on the agenda, you are welcome to let me know, and I will take that into consideration. There's nothing's hidden. There's no opaqueness. I'm not trying to prevent anyone from any sort of debate or anything like that, by the way. I believe an email does go to, correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, and an email goes to both the group leader, the opposition group leader, and the spokesperson for the leading group to ask them as well. So there's plenty of opportunity for everyone to contribute to the agenda, and I am not minded to prevent anyone from having any debate. So if anyone wants to go on social media and suggest that so-called independents are stifling debate or anything like that, you are very much mistaken. And so if there's anything you want to add, please speak up now. Councillor Loughman.
Yes, I've heard that the leader of our Conservative group has said something on social media that was preventing an agenda item. And as you've outlined, I have yet to hear from my Conservative colleagues or independent colleagues of that actually ever having been on the agenda in the first place. And I'm assuming that we have the freedom and right, as you indicate, to put parking back on the agenda in due course.
Yeah, for clarity, I haven't removed anything from the agenda. That was suggested, falsely suggested, by the way. So no, nothing was removed from this agenda. I don't believe that any Conservative councillors asked for any cabinet items to be put on this agenda. Is that correct? No. So no, that is demonstrably false. So if the leader of the opposition wants to contact me and apologise, he is quite welcome to. So is there anything from the key decisions anyone wants to raise, or should we move on to the next item? No. Okay. Noting that nobody has raised anything. Okay. Item number 8 then, scrutiny work programme. Rebecca, did you want to speak on that?
Thank you, Chair. So in respect to the work programme, as we're at the start of the new municipal year, it is for members to identify items for inclusion. Normal process would be that once the items are identified, the Chair will work to identify the priority order unless members have any particular priorities that they wish to indicate on the items. Also for members to review what we have holding over from the previous year as to whether they wish to keep that or whether they wish to remove any of that. Once we've got this, we can then start pulling it together for the coming year. Now, in respect of the Betshanger item, I have been advised by Betshanger that they don't want to meet at this particular time. They've suggested in a couple of months they may wish to meet. So I will follow that up with them should the committee decide to keep that within the work programme. I still haven't heard back from the Environment Agency or Southern Water either in respect of that particular item, so I will chase up on that. So really it's just a question of building in what we have and then sort of getting the chair and spokespersons to organise that, sort of agree the priority. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's important to note that I think when Councillor Friend first raised, for example, deal phlebotomy services, that was quite some time ago, wasn't it? We could have, I suppose, gone straight for that and had empty chairs and whatever. But I think the committee took kind of the decision that we would have a couple of attempts at raising it with relevant people. And I think that process of kind of waiting a little bit worked, didn't it? Because we eventually got someone to come and speak, and that was better than talking to ourselves. Whilst, you know, lovely as you all are, I think it's helpful sometimes to have, well, some of us then, it's helpful, isn't it, to have some experts to come in as well that we can question and hold those people accountable. So I appreciate that there's a feeling, for example, out there that we should be getting on with a review of Betshanger Park sooner rather than later, because that was the full council recommendation. I don't believe there was a time frame on that motion. So I guess it's up to all of us. You know, we could go ahead and set that as a priority, and we must have that on the next agenda. But my preference would be to work on getting representatives from Betshanger Park, so we have the opportunity to ask the questions. If they refuse, that's, you know, that is what it is, and we would have to then debate it without them. But I'd prefer that we have the chance to get them in first. If they decline, then we can discuss. And the same with the Environment Agency and Southern Water. We'd rather have them here than not here. So I noticed a couple of people got hands up. So it'd be good to hear your thoughts on what order you would like things in. What's the preference? If there's anything else you'd like to add. So I think Councillor Richardson, Councillor Luffman, Councillor Friend, did you have your hand? Yeah, let's go in that order.
Thank you, Chair, for that. I have no particular order in what comes forward, and I leave that very much up to you. Then my second question is that under the St Margaret's at Cliff car park maintenance, to see an update on proposals for the maintenance of St Margaret's at Cliff car park, that is not the actual car parks, it's St Margaret's Bay car park and not at Cliff, which you refer to as Reach Road. So it's more the Bay car park there. And finally, Chairman, we've only got another year at the moment as well, 2 years, but then the 27 year might be a little bit strange year. So how many other things do you think we'll be able to put onto our work programme? Are you going to start limiting it, or it looks quite full at the moment? Are you going to say, can we have another 5 or 6 we can do, or, you know, put as many as you want, and then I'll talk to you and discuss with us which ones we'll kick out? What's your opinion on that? Sorry, Chair.
So this year, obviously, we take cabinet items. I'm assuming you're thinking separately to that. You're talking about wider issues. Yeah, we probably did four, five maybe this time. So if we are exceeding that, then we're either going to have very long meetings, or we're going to end up having to schedule extraordinary meetings, which we had discussed about whether Betsanger would have to be an extraordinary meeting, particularly if we want to have sufficient public kind of debate on that. So that's an option. But I agree. I don't think we want to end up at the end of the year, this time next year, with a whole load of items that we want to push over, because we may not have the financial freedom. So we're probably looking at 4 or 5 kind of at the most items. And then I guess it's a process of prioritizing them, isn't it? I think clearly Betsanger Park is a priority. And then we would have to, other things might fall off. St Margaret's Bay car park is clearly a priority for yourself and Councillor Bates, maybe less so for others in the district, but I think we would have to prioritise them. Yeah, I mean, the debate on something like that car park may not be as extensive as Betsanger. So again, it depends, doesn't it? Lots of small items versus one big one. It depends.
So we all understand, that the year is only a year, and we can't sort of pile up the work program knowing that in May next year we have to say sorry.
Yeah, so 4 items like the Environment Agency, Southern Water would probably be our kind of maximum, wouldn't it? Thank you. Councillor Loughman.
Thank you, Chair. Batting on the same subject, given the the 7 items in relation to scheduling: climate change strategy, affordable housing, critical incident update in health, water quality, Betsanger Country Park, regeneration update, and potholes. Those are the happy list that we have before us, and there are a number where public interest is key. And I personally, my priorities would be, as have been previously outlined, Betsanger and the water quality issue, especially. But I agree with you wholeheartedly in relation to having folk here rather than having empty chair discussions if we possibly can, especially on these important items like health. But those would be the 3 that I would be most concerned about. I know folk spell potholes in 4-letter words, but whether we can get KCC to come, and I'd be very interested in that. And of course, affordable housing has been a priority of the cabinet and of the ruling group sometimes, so that will be a very useful discussion at some point. So thank you for your comments, and which I agree with.
Yeah, and I think I agree that having the QEQM and William Harvey critical incident update would be helpful, because I can't see that being a particular issue that's going to go away, and learning lessons and having the opportunity to speak up on behalf of our residents, I think would be useful, because going into another winter where it's likely to be an issue, we'd be, I think, kicking ourselves if we didn't take the opportunity when they're saying they will come in, I believe is the indication we're getting. I think we should take that if we can. So again, I think it's a matter of saying what we want. We'll go away and have a look. We'll see what we can schedule in. If we can get them all in, great. If we can't, we'll do what we can. So I think, so Betsanger, water quality, I think will be our priorities, or unless someone wants to tell me otherwise. Councillor Friend.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just with the QEQM William Harvey one, I wonder whether we could weave into that conversation about the stroke services and the consolidation of that and what that will actually mean. I know a lot of residents are rightly concerned about that. It'd be good for us to be able to get an update on them for it. And I just wonder whether we had an update from Pothole Pete and the KCC crew as to... No. Okay. Not unexpected, but yeah, no. And I completely agree, getting people along to the discussions would be very helpful, but the hopefully the threat of an empty chair meeting for phlebotomy services was the kicker that needed to force them to come along and actually engage with us.
Yeah, and I know the Dover Joint Transportation Advisory Board struggles to get KCC officers along, and that's a standing committee. So I'm not saying we shouldn't try, but again, we struggle to get them to one committee, let alone a second one. So, okay, I think we've probably got some options there that we can take away. We'll discuss with others, and then next meeting we'll come back with hopefully what we think is a useful programme. Are we happy with that then? Is there anything anyone else wants to say for now on the hypothetical programme? If not, shall we move on? Item 9 then is public speaking. We've got no one for public speaking. That takes us on to item 10 then, Housing Asset Management Strategy 2026-2031.
Thank you, Chair. So the Housing Asset Management Strategy outlines the Council's approach to managing our housing portfolio over the next 5 years. Reviewed annually, it will inform our strategic property decisions to ensure we manage our housing assets effectively. The strategy will be measured against the following measures: 100% health and safety compliance, 100% decent home standard compliance, 100% of DDC's homes achieving an EPC rating of A to C by April 2030, 100% of stock condition surveys less than 5 years old, and 100% of identified flood mitigation measures in place. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Any questions for David? Councillor Loughman.
In the absence of Councillor Bates, I fear that I'm picking up a mantle, perhaps. My apologies, David. I have several points, and in the Councillor Bates tradition, if I may, I'm only going to kick off with 3, allowing other councillors to have the opportunity. And if Chair would allow, I might come back with another couple. The matter in 3.1 of monitoring and implementation, it's asserted that there is an annual report back, and given in 4.1 that the overarching aim is to have a positive impact for our tenants, I'm wondering whether an annual rather than a 6-monthly report would be considered more, because we would like to ensure, whether at governance or whatever, that things were being appropriate, as I'm sure they are. But I'm just wondering about the report, and that given the additional social housing the council is introducing, to what extent could this stretch existing resources, or are resources sufficiently nailed on to meet the potential increase? And I'm thinking on a range of things. So, for example, on page 29 of your report, and can I just say how delighted I was in your 7.0 damp, mould and condensation, the clear identification of timescales in relation to response. And I know that this has been encouraged by current legislation, but I just still think that it's a very welcome element to your report. But when it comes to, for example, electrical safety on page 29, you say for Cat 1 and 2 defects, there'll be prompt rectification. And it would be helpful to have had that kind of delivery schedule, delivery target to be thought on, I thought. And the other thing on page 32, I notice, is that roughly, because I know it can't necessarily be accurately projected, that there are 60 major adaptations per year. Now, given the increase in numbers and the disabled and elderly percentage of tenants, for example, that is likely to, I would have thought, increase, because if you include the 55 to 64 as well as the 65 plus tenants, that's around about 37.5% of our total tenancy. And the impacts in the next 5 years regarding disabled, I think is likely to increase. And I'm just wondering about your projections in that area, because I see that that could be a stretch, and I'm sure you're going to prove me wrong and that I need not worry. But any response to those points, I'd be very welcome. Thank you.
So the first point was in relation to reporting back to Cabinet annually. And obviously the report advises that we will be reporting to the Housing Working Group and the Corporate Management Team twice as well, notwithstanding obviously that we will be doing regular updates to the Housing Working Group, which meets on a monthly basis. So hopefully that answers the first point. The second one in relation to resources, obviously many things are going to change over the next, year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, notwithstanding obviously the Decent Home Standard as well. So this is a feeder document into the main HRA business plan. So budgets will be reviewed annually to ensure obviously that they are fit for purpose. The projections that are within the report in terms of the plan maintenance and elements of the plan maintenance are within budget at this time. But as you say, they will need to be reviewed annually. And obviously there's a new Decent Home Standard coming out in 2026, which will bring a whole new criteria of components and replacements as well. But that will be reflected more heavily in the HRA business plan itself. And the third one around adaptations. I mean, we've obviously seen consistent numbers of adaptations. It is we don't have 60 annually. We do have numbers that fluctuate each year. If those numbers increase, obviously the budgets will be reviewed annually as they always are. So it was more of this is around the number of major adaptations that we do per year. If that number changes, obviously then we will review and adjust accordingly.
Thank you. We don't all have to stick to the Bates model, by the way. You can ask one at a time if that's easier for officers. Going to go Councillor Knight and then Councillor Friend.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Last time I was involved in this meeting and a couple of others, one of the things that come up was the maintenance of properties, looking after them with increased stock that we're looking to do over a period of time and adaptations, as already mentioned. One of the problems that I was certainly aware of was the lack of standards and response times, etc., of some of our properties, which was concerning back then. I just want to ask the question now, have we actually seen an improvement? We've awarded new contracts, and are things improving? Because certainly at one stage they weren't too clever. So I'd just like to have a bit of an update on where we are today. Thank you.
I mean, not fully appreciating exactly where you're coming from in terms of obviously the standards, but yes, things have improved across the board. So obviously compliance, 6 big areas, and we've seen significant improvement, and we're near 100% across a number of those work streams. Emergency repairs for MERS, again, have been at or close to 100% as well. So performance has improved and continues to improve. We report to the Housing Working Group on a monthly basis on these figures as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Friend.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, David. I had a number of questions last week that we helpfully went over on a phone call, which greatly appreciated. The other question I had was around the consultation for the document. I just wonder why it was chosen to go to the tenants consultative group after it had been to Cabinet, why it wasn't done the other way round, and potentially the tenants group could have fed into some changes before it got to that point. Thank you.
It's essentially because these are things that we must do. So they're legally required things that we have to do. We are going to consult with tenants at the conference that we have planned in the summer, and we'll feedback anything that's needed from there. I think it'd be more around style, content, wording, etc. But these are things that we must do.
So you don't expect the bulk of the content of this to change then? It's just the way that you present it to them. That's what you're saying?
Correct. For some of these as well, what we've tried to do are shortened versions as well, which hopefully more accessible. So what is in here is things that we must do. So the main content won't change.
Okay, thank you. I know a lot of councillors have mentioned a lot of times about the way we write our policies, because obviously it's great. We might read lots of policies, but I was going to say we're not normal, but I don't know if that's fair. Councillor Rose and then Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, David. We keep going around in circles about this gas safety issue. When DDC took over the gas and the mandatory inspections a long while ago, we were expected to be doing more than people ignoring it, which they had been doing for about 9 years. We're well into that period now. Have we got a commitment for those properties that are under your remit that have still not allowed access and gas safety to get it sorted out this year? No matter how many there are, whether it's single figures, we need to get it removed.
I think I'm going to do that, Chair, if that's okay. So I know it's coming up in the performance report, gas safety, but I'm looking at some data from April, the end of April this year, and we had 99.95. We were 99.95% compliant on gas safety, which meant that one property was overdue, and that's not for the want of trying from David's team. It's a process that we're working through to gain access. So, you know, in a month's period, there might be times where we're 100% compliant, but, you know, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Bloggs, Mr. You know, haven't let us in quite in time, but we are working through a legal process to gain access. So we're very near 100% compliant on gas. So our position was recognised by the regulator in relation to gas. It's one of our stronger compliance areas. Electrical safety, which was mentioned earlier, is a weaker area. It's actually 93.43% at the end of April on electrical safety, but we are working with our contractors to improve that position too. And I think, just David, you mind picking up the question about C1s and C2s? So as far as I'm aware, if there is an issue in relation to a C1, the electrical safety contractor wouldn't leave site until that's resolved. Is that the same for C2s or not? Sorry, can you answer that question?
Yes, it should be for C2s as well. So generally they won't leave site unless they're resolved on site. And obviously just going back to the gas, I mean, we have been near or at 100% now for a significant number of months. So I'm not quite sure in terms of the round sort of circle question on that front. So,
well, the gas is the most volatile energy. Without an inspection, it's more important than electrics, to be honest with you. So it needs to be 100%.
As I said, we are pretty much barring one or two properties at 100% and have been for a number of months. And accept your point, and it is important, and that's why we are so close to 100% all the time.
Current access for housing companies is pretty much a 24-hour situation now. It's all digital.
So can I ask, if we're saying one property, kind of what level of non-compliance is that then? Is it, you know, we've gone over by a number of days, or you know, we months out? How far away are we from? Maybe you don't have that off the top of your head, but if it's one property, you may know. How far away are we from that inspection date?
I mean, I don't know the specifics on the individual property, but it'll be a matter of days, so it would just come out of non-compliance.
My boiler's probably longer overdue than that. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Richardson, and then Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got 4 questions. They're all fairly simple, I think. The first one is that you, on page 2, you say you're providing an average of 200 additional council homes this year, or each year of the administration, 800 in total. I was just wondering how many you're actually at the moment, and how many are temporary accommodation, how many you've actually got at temporary accommodation purposes. My next question is, you've got a long-term strategy provision of affordable homes. You don't mention any numbers on that, or what the strategy is, and will there be social rent or affordable rent? Because you're saying affordable homes, whether it's social rent or affordable rent. I have noticed there's a massive disparity in social housing within Dover District Council. 50.6% of the housing is in Dover. That's 2,500 of the houses, which is way out of proportion when you think that there are only 37,000 people within Dover and there are 120,000 people in the Dover district. And when you're looking into the villages, there only are 257 tenanted properties, no temporary accommodation, and only 5 shared ownerships. I was just wondering, will that disparity be evened out? And finally, homeless numbers. You say you're going to investigate innovative options, but then say not what these innovative options are. Can you just give me 3 of those innovative options that are going through the housing team at the moment, please?
Whereabouts does it say that? Sorry, Councillor Richardson. Obviously, in terms of the additional housing, it's the context of the Dover District Council's corporate plan, so the asset management strategy. If somebody, the strategic housing element is not something that I can discuss in great detail because that's not my remit. The asset management strategy is how we're going to manage our existing assets, and that's what this is predominantly there to do. So if you have questions in terms of the strategic housing delivery, I'm afraid I'm not the person to answer them for you, or on homelessness either. What the report sets out, obviously, is what the council's strategic priorities are within its corporate plan, and that is what the first part of that document is there to do. It'll be somebody from Rachel's team that would talk about the 200 or the homelessness element.
I think also the target SP 009 sets out the number of properties added per quarter. I think it was 12 for quarter 4. So you could have a look at that. I think the investigating innovative options is actually in the financial update. So maybe we'll keep that for item number 11. Yeah, maybe I'll come back to you in item 11. That's okay, mate. No worries. Okay, let's go to Councillor Williams for questions on item 10.
Your objective 6, delivering social value. I'm wondering whether disabled housing fits in here, and also supported elderly housing, both things of social value.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question for me, Councillor Williams?
Yes, I'm looking at delivering social value, which is objective 6 on page 13. Okay, and there has been no mention in this appendix or appendices or anything in this section about disabled housing for disabled people, and also for supported elderly housing. And I'm wondering, those are 2 items of great social value, and I'm wondering where they fit in.
So again, this is more managing our current assets. So in terms of delivery and disabled housing delivery, again, it'll be a question for the strategic housing team in respect of that. Obviously, there is a section in here within disabled adaptations and adaptations to our existing stock, which are necessary, which this document covers.
Right. Okay, now I can see what you mean. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chair. In relation to social value, there's an action under objective 6 within the action plan, which is on page 34 of the pack. And social value is largely around the commitments that the contractors have made to get, for example, people into work, or sort of support the community. Social value, although, what you're suggesting around adaptations and independent living is important, it's not what's meant necessarily by social value, which is covered within the contract that's agreed with the contractor. Yes, we should be providing, we should be adapting homes and providing new adapted homes, or homes that can be easily accessible. And we should also be, and this is something we are discussing, investing in our independent living accommodation. But this, as it stands, this document is about bringing all homes up to the decent home standard largely, and ensuring homes are compliant with our health and safety responsibilities, and, as David said earlier, about achieving good energy performance credentials within our stock. So it's about meeting our kind of legal obligations. What we do around older persons accommodation will come forward, but that's kind of going beyond our minimum requirements as a landlord.
Thanks for that. Can I just ask, and then I'll just come back to you. In part 8 of the report, of the policy, sorry, you talk about a budget of 4 million being allocated for the work stream on fully funded energy efficiency works. And then objective 4 talks about developing a costed plan to achieve EPC EPCC by the 1st of April 2030, and that has a date of Q3 26-27. So that 4 million budget, has that been costed, or is that an estimate? Where's that come from if you haven't fully costed the plan yet?
So we have an annual budget, which is currently carrying out social housing decarbonation fund works. There is an annual budget for energy efficiency works. We do still need to do some further work in respect of bringing most of our properties, which are at EPC D, up to an EPC C. We're going for a fabric first approach. So there have been some high level costings in terms of what that will be, but further work is required to do so. But we do obviously have a additional contingency for stock condition works, which sits outside of those other 2 budgets as well.
Okay, so is that 4 million between now and April 2030, or is that 4 million per year? So that's a million a year.
Yes.
Okay. It doesn't seem a huge amount to me. Maybe I'm completely wrong. There's something like 1,600 properties that are below EPC C, 4 million, 2,500 each. They might need new windows. They might need a heat pump if they're off gas, as you've said. Is that an actual? Is it just because you've got a budget of 4 million, is my point? Or is it just you've got a budget, so you're going to use it? Is it a budget that we've got this many properties that need new windows and a heat pump? It doesn't seem like if I wanted to fully, increase the rating of my property, or are we just going to say, well, let's bump them up to C so we meet our target. And if we've got the money, we might do it or not. It doesn't seem like a huge amount to me, and it doesn't seem fully costed to me.
So I take your point, Chair. I mean, as David's pointed out, we need to do some more work around this to get a more precise figure, and that's what we will be doing over the next few months. But it is worth saying that the work within the 4 million doesn't include things like replacing windows or replacing doors, because that's coming out of our Decent Homes money. So this is additional work to that. It's also, it may be, some of the work might be heating systems, but again, that's coming out of the Decent Homes budget, not the environmental sustainability budget. So primarily this is about insulation, as David, when you were talking about Fabric First, identified. So it's largely about loft insulation, cavity wall insulation, which is why it's relatively cheap. That doesn't necessarily mean that will get to C for all our stock, but it will get the majority of the stock to an EPC C. You can see from the data on page 30 that there are some challenges, particularly in relation to the sort of F rated and G rated property.
Okay, I only mentioned windows, etc., because the next bullet from 4 million says use fabric first approach such as insulation, air tightness, windows and doors. So that's my mistake for confusing windows for the fabric of the building. Councillor Loughman.
While completely accepting Councillor Rose's point regarding gas, I just wanted to say thank you for the identification of the 93.7, I think, % in relation to electrics. What gives a councillor confidence is when one sees a manager recognising that there's something that's a little under, acknowledging that and targeting something forward. So thank you very much, Andy.
Okay, any other questions? I think we've had a good number of points on that. Okay, are we happy to note this report then? Yep. Okay, nodding, I think is fine. We're happy with that. Okay, thanks very much, David, for that. That takes us on to 11. I think some people might have some questions on number 11. Financial update, Q4 25-26. Helen.
So thank you. So this is your Q4 financial update report. It's quite important to note at this point that although this is Q4, it is still a forecast at this time. The team are busy working away on the final positions to produce the statement of accounts. So there are likely to still be changes when we get that final outturn in the next few months. So yeah, this is still just picking up the main variances that were picked up in the quarter. The general fund is forecasting a £553,000 surplus, which is lower than the Q3 surplus by just short of 300,000, as detailed in paragraph 2.2. The main items for that would be a reduction in the staffing savings previously forecast, a further increase in planning fee income, and a reduction in parking income forecast in the quarter. We've added a risk to all of our sections to reflect the potential contract pressures on fuel and inflation from the current global issues. The housing revenue account is forecasting a deficit of 428,000. The main variance there being the increase in response contract works and borrowing interest costs, reflecting the ongoing growth in the housing development programme. And finally, just to draw your attention that the updates on the Section 24 recommendations that were previously included in the quarterly reports are no longer included following the closing of all those recommendations by Grant Thornton earlier in the year. We will provide updates to members if there's anything relating to those as necessary, rather than just telling you there's no more to update every quarter. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I'm sure the auditors will find something else. Is there any questions? Councillor Richardson, I reckon. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I've now found the actual point. I have 3 questions on this. So first of all, point 2.2, paragraph 2.2, parking, £89,000 lower in your forecast. That's £89,000, an awful lot. Why? Do you believe that that we've lost that much money? Because it is a loss, because you didn't expect it. My second question is 2.3, homeless numbers, investigate innovative options. I couldn't see anywhere in the paper what these innovative options were. Can you just sort of name me 3 of them? And finally, page 62, 4.1, has the 3-week loan to Surrey County Council been repaid? If so, how much interest did we make on it?
Thank you. I'll take the parking one and then share the others around. So for parking, it is still a forecast, so we are fine-tuning those numbers, so that could still move by the end of the year. A big impact is we've had around about 50% of our civil enforcement officer staffing levels for a good chunk of the year, due to quite a significant staff turnover in the year. So we are now back up to full capacity in the team, so we are expecting that to recover and improve as we move forward.
That's a loss due to fines, then, is what you're saying, because we didn't have enough enforcement officers.
Yep, that's the main reason for it. Yep, there are other various bits and differences, but that's the main reason. We've also had salary savings, so and to some extent it'll offset.
Are we expecting a better forecast for the next year in terms of what we expect to get as an income from parking, or is it purely down to not having enough staff?
I mean, parking is always a difficult thing because the weather, the time of the year of an Easter holiday before or after April and things like that can have different impacts. We are anticipating, if we can keep stability in the team, which we're very much hoping to do, and the new parking manager who you've all worked with is very much leading on that and supporting that. So if we can keep stability in the team, we would hope to see income up, and the more presence we have of our parking attendants, the more likely people are to pay. And not to try and sort of dodge the parking fees. So hopefully, things will hold up for next year.
I think for my sins, I've got the homelessness question. So innovative options. I think the first thing I'd say on this is that there's a homelessness strategy that we've published that shows the work we're planning to do to reduce the number of homeless households we're supporting as an authority, and seek to recover more of our costs through benefit claims. So I'm going to slightly struggle with the innovative part of the question. But for example, we are putting more resources and more effort into prevention, which you would expect, preventing people becoming homeless. As I say, I'm not certain how innovative that is, but that's the right thing to do. And we are looking at we're starting some work around reclaiming the costs, as I say, through welfare benefits. That's one area, and we're also doing some work with the charitable organisation to help us reclaim some additional parts of our costs. So there are three areas that we're working on, but I'm not professing to sit here and sort of know the homelessness strategy in enough detail to kind of quote any more than that. But certainly there's a lot of work going on to sort of reduce the impact on the authority from homelessness, and to try and reduce the number of people who are becoming homeless by preventing people where possible. And we do have funding from the government to support us to do that.
The Surrey council loan, did we make interest on that?
Yes, so it was repaid on time, on the day. The rate that we received for that loan was 8%, which was why we decided to lend it out. That's in comparison to our money market fund, which would be about 4.5%. And we received £18,500 for that loan.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Friend.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, going off piste a little bit, but relevant, I hope. Council tax collection rates. Now that we have lifted some people entirely out of that responsibility, do we expect the collection rates to increase significantly? I get that it's quite high anyway, but are we expecting a demonstrable increase to that? And also for the business rates collection, I know the figures that we looked at before for the upcoming business rates collection were intriguing at best for some of those. I know there's some appeals ongoing. Have we got an update on where we expect to finish with that, and what our responsibility to repaying government or claiming back anything that is contested? Thank you.
So for council tax, and I'll answer as best as I can because partnership one of the experts on this. So with the new scheme, yes, we are hoping to see collection rates improve. However, they are seeing a very much a challenging collection environment. And in general, we are still collecting around about good 98% of our council tax in the long term, but they're starting to see that it's taking us a bit longer. So although the in-year collection is important and it helps with cash flow and timing, ultimately it's the ultimate collection that we're interested in, and they are still delivering that high level of collection over the long period, but it is starting to take a long time. But we would hope to see some improvements. We are looking at the targets and the collection levels with partnership one for 26/7 to reflect those changes, and we'll have to monitor that throughout the year. For business rates, the significant area that we have challenges under a legal challenge process, and that process continues. So we were waiting for feedback on that. We make assumptions within our annual business rate returns about what we collect, and they will be picked up over the long term.
So basically questions we're going to ask every quarter, and eventually we might get an answer, because we eventually might know, because I guess the point on the council tax is it's probably too soon at the moment, isn't it, to actually see a difference to those people that have been lifted out of paying for it, and whether that makes a difference yet, because more people are probably struggling than they were before, and so it's probably cancelled out anyway. And we don't know the people that would have challenged yet legally on business rates, but ask it again in 4 years' time and you might know. Okay, if we're still here. Councillor Loughman.
Thank you, Chair. I always look forward to seeing figures surrounded by brackets in areas, and it's delightful to see the HRA so bracketed. On page 61, however, I do note that the 788 figure from the Treasury relates to borrowing forecast due to ongoing growth. Does that figure relate to the coming year, or to, if you could define that, please? I'm just concerned that how much we can potentially forecast given the increases we have in that area. I'm delighted to read on page 62 of the significant reduction in tenant arrears. So well done, tenants, and well done, our officers. And in 4.4, I'm very pleased to see that a review is going to be undertaken to consider medium and long-term borrowing to provide certainty of cash flow and borrowing costs. As you know, I always bat on. I don't see. I think it's an injection. I'm trying to avoid a bat on about short-term borrowing because of cash flow fluctuations, but it would be helpful if you can to provide some type of timescale for that review, so that can be so we can look forward to that coming to governance at some point.
So the HRA borrowing, that is for the previous year, so for 25-26, and we forecast based on the need of borrowing. When we do the viability for each housing development, one of the things that we take into account there is the interest that's going to be payable for that loan. So that is all taken into account, and that has to be viable for the development to get as far as CMT, cabinet, etc. So even though it looks like there is a lot going in, or a lot of interest being charged, that does come out through the rent that we receive and the council tax, etc. So it's kind of offset. And obviously where the houses are new, they don't have as much maintenance and repairs, etc. For the second part, for the for the loan, sorry, we do review. We have a daily email sent from our Treasury advisors telling us what the interest rate would be if we was to borrow from the PWLB. And if it's a particularly good rate, then they will email us, and say to us, today's a really good day to borrow, if you're wanting to. So they could do kind of alert us when it is a really good time. We're just not at that point kind of yet. So, but it will be kind of imminent, really.
Luckily, it was a good question. Otherwise, mentioning of governance was going to get you disallowed. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just a small question. I noticed in 5.3 there's 50k Whitfield urban expansion delivery. What is DDC paying for that the planning department and the builders and so on are not covering?
I believe it's just around extra resource and capacity because it's a particularly large project, also for consultation and those sorts of things. But I would have to double check that with the planning department off the top of my head. I don't have the detail. But there will have been a published decision notice because it's an approved project.
Yes, I know, and it's very good. But I'm wondering why DDC is having to foot some of the bill. Obviously, a small one, but
yeah, it's a huge project and it's going to have a big impact on the planning team.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'd be interested to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Friend, and then I've not got anyone else on the list. Oh, sorry, Councillor Knight after that.
Happy for Councillor Knight to go first.
Councillor Williams sort of stole my thunder on that, but I'm coming from a totally different tack, to be honest with you. Project programs, I was just reading through that and looking at all the items, and I failed to see that the Whitfield urban expansion, which we're talking about 10 to 20 years, has been given £50,000 when we've got things like a platform to a beach, closed churchyards of 50,000. I can't see how 50 grand is anywhere close to enough in terms of that. And that was where I was coming from, to find out why we've only got 50,000 awarded to a project that is probably the biggest thing that's going on in our community in the Dover district area. It seems to me completely under-resourced. So Helen probably can't answer that question, but I actually was almost insulted by that figure, considering what we're looking at in Whitfield.
I can try, Councillor Knight, to answer it. So, I mean, I'm sure you're well aware, the Whitfield urban expansion is you know, we've within our local plan, we've identified sites for development, and obviously developers will come forward with proposals around that, how they're going to deliver on those sites. So, you know, the cost for us as an authority around that open expansion are not going to be significant. I understand, you know, there are some issues we will need to address, but that's why, you know, it's possibly a staffing resource issue, the 50,000. Yes, so it's within the cabinet report that around needing additional staffing resources. So it's staffing resources to support the consideration of significant planning applications. That's what the 50,000 is for. But the actual costs associated with developing that site are going to be funded by a series of developers.
Yeah, so it sounds very similar to the project role that was undertaken in Elsham, where we had an officer for a number of years, and that's just probably this year's salary and on costs, isn't it? Helen, do you want to jump in? And then...
Just say if it helps, there was a decision notice published on the 26th of January, DD 4525, if you want to have a look at the item for a bit more detail.
So we know what you're going to read before bed tonight, Councillor Knight. Go on, jump back in.
Yeah, jump back in. So is that a one-off amount of money, or is that going to be looked at annually moving forward? Because as we get into the development, we're being looking at phase 2, but we're actually, as you are well aware, that we're looking at phases 3, 4, and 5 at the moment, which are going to be coming to us very shortly. So there's going to be an awful lot of work very quickly.
So it's a one-off project budget at the moment for them to use as they require. If they think they will need more, then they will be, planning department will be looking at putting a new bid into the 27-28 budget process if they need it. So that's what's approved at this point in time.
If I remember rightly, this is about the consultation, isn't it, and bringing the community groups and things like that together. So yeah, it's very similar to what's happened elsewhere for now. Talk to the planning department, I would advise. Let's go, Councillor Friend, and then I think we're going to move on.
Thank you, Chair. Item 5.4, reference 1. I wondered whether there was anything meaningful to update, or whether the information we've had previously is unchanged, rather than having to go into the pink to discuss it.
Yeah, there's nothing to update, unfortunately, on this project. We are expecting an adjudication decision soon, but we haven't had one as yet.
Okay. Thank you. As Emma Jane's not here, I could assume there was nothing to tell us, but that's good to ask. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, again, I think we've had a good discussion on that one. Are we happy to note the financial update Q4? Yep. Everyone happy? Okay, thank you very much. Takes us on to item 12, then the strategic performance report Q4 2025-26. Susie.
Thank you very much. This report provides a summary of performance against the strategic performance indicators for Q4, which covers the period the 1st of January to the 31st of March this year. The strategic performance report, which is outlined in Appendix 1, you'll notice on page 5 that we have an introduction that gives a summary of the headline achievements and highlights any areas of concern that we will monitor. Highlights include strong progress on fire risk actions, planning applications and port health. Points to monitor include housing register, environmental cleanliness and antisocial behaviour. I'm happy to attempt to take any questions from you today, but may need to refer to the heads of service if I can't. Thank you.
Thank you. And as always, if you're going to refer to a specific item, can you try and use a number or something so we're not all guessing? Any questions? Well, we all questioned out already. It's only 7 o'clock. I mean, I'm not going to force you. Councillor Friend.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go slightly off on this, but I'm going to use the item as an attempt to interject on something else. SP 021 A and B, so environmental cleanliness. I'm going to shoehorn in the Sprucer project that was excellent, very well received, and in terms of our visibility as a council and the civic pride and everything that comes along with that was delivered, I just wondered whether there was any possibility of expanding that project for the coming year. A team of 4 or 5 would be brilliant.
Okay, Chris Townend, you're here. Go on.
We are in the process of looking at that. We've had conversations with ATR and it's already gone through job evaluation as well. So there is a process ongoing to look how we might be able to bring that back, because it was so well received by the public. The positive comments are amazing. So I know Jane is working on that, and obviously with Kelly as well.
Bring it back or widen it, Chris?
Bring it back with the focus on the town centres. So still the 3 town centres, so Dover, Dill and Sandwich.
Yeah, maybe we could make a suggestion that the project is expanded. I think everyone felt the warm fuzzy feelings that project delivered. So just thank you. Just going on to another point as well, from finances on this, I'm going to shoehorn off on a tangent again, around the pier. And I spoke to David earlier about whether there was any opportunity to open earlier or look at that project, and he did confirm to me that they are looking into it and will be coming back at some point in the next few weeks with a report on some options. I just wanted to put that on there. Thank you, Chair.
He did sneak off though, so we couldn't ask him a question. No, that's fine. Okay, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. And can I thank Councillor Friend for his very helpful shoehorning, and especially that warm fuzzy feeling, which I'm sure we all want to continue to enjoy and improve and increase. So just a couple of points, if I may. And going back to 21A, I'm sure I've got this wrong, so please correct me. It's lovely to see lots of those arrows going up. And obviously it's the ones going down that we worry about. But in 21A, I thought it said with 98.7%, we're above target, but the arrow's going down. But it didn't seem to be a lower percentage from the previous one. So if it's me, please, I'm prepared to accept that. But if it's not, why? I note that in 006, we've got a target of 97% on page 119, and that the lowest has been 97.28 on 006, although there's no note as to why that may have gone down. That was a one, and I'm assuming that 008 on page 71 in relation to homeless prevention, the quarterly number is determined by how many approaches one has, because that's how it is determined. It's not a matter of us going out or whatever. And I think that should be clear. And it's very good to know that that there's been some significant homeless prevention conducted this year. I also note in 13, 97% in Q3 of non-major planning applications have hit the target, 92% in Q4. Both are way above the 75% target, but that's a DDC target. I'm just wanting to verify that, because I thought at one stage, at one part of the report, I thought it was a national target, and I just like clarification on that.
Councillor Luffman, should we let Susie come back in on some of those? Is that? I
thought I was on a roll.
I was enjoying it. It's almost like a bit of background noise, but should we let Susie have a go at answering them?
Yeah, 1 out of 4 is good enough.
Yeah, go on.
So on 21A, was it 21A? Question, that was the first one. That one, obviously, the arrow is the direction of travel from the previous quarter. So obviously the target is greater than 95%. We want it as near to 100%. So, we are harsh. It has dropped by 1.3% from Q3 to Q4. Yep. I can't have the arrow go straight because it's not 100%. If they'd have kept 100%, they could have had it. But so that is why they've got a down arrow. But yes, they are above the target. In terms of 006, for some reason mine isn't picking up. Does anyone know what page number we're on? Thank you. So what was the question from that? Actually, I'll go to the other question I did pay attention to.
I think on that one, 006, Councillor Luffman, you talked about you referenced a target, but there is no target for 006. So
yes, there is, Chair. On page 119, a new target was established for 97%. Okay.
So,
So you're referencing the next report, which is talking about the targets for the forthcoming year. So we're not quite there yet. You've done a Councillor Richardson on us, I'm afraid.
yeah, so on some of them this year, and it was picked up in an internal audit, we recognise that obviously some are observational targets, but where they should have a target if we can quantify them, which is why we've now picked that up in future in the next report. Then 008, obviously that's number of cases where the homelessness has been prevented. That was to note. And the final one, the 013, yes, 65% is the government target. We set the Dover District Council one at 75%.
Thank you. Councillor Luffman, did you have any more?
Just a couple. 27B in relation to planning enforcement, there's no targets at all. And one of the issues that I've had residents coming to me about can be response. And I know the team has made significant improvements, which I'm very grateful for. But I'm sure, and it's unusual for these things not to have some kind of target response rate or something, even if I know some clear up rates can be very problematic and unable to be fully timescale. But I'm just wondering about that. But I'm delighted to see that we've got a significant number of our planning enforcements sorted, over 60, I believe. So some comment about that. Modernising the council, the ROs, there's a number, like 19, 23, 24, 33, where there's, say, 15, there's been a drop from 29 to 15. I'm just wondering whether you envisage any further drops, any further improvements on those, or obviously there are some risks that are beyond the pale, like central government in RO1, but any comments you can make in relation to improvements of any of the ROs, I'd welcome as well.
As a treat, I'll leave the risk ones to Rebecca. That's her bag. But on the 27B, in terms of the planning enforcement one, for anyone who was here at Cabinet last week, we discussed the closure reasons, and that is something that the planning enforcement team are going to look at from Q1 now to make sure, obviously, we haven't got some of those, obviously they duplicate, or we could merge some. So we're going to look at standardising those going forward from Q1. In terms of a target, then obviously I can take that back to them to see if there is a target within. It depends on the close, because obviously we can respond, we can acknowledge. So beneath this is a strategic indicator that it will have operational levels. So there probably is one about acknowledge within a certain period of time, but we can get back to you on that.
If I may, before Rebecca comes in, for which I thank you, can I just reinforce the fact that I'm delighted at the improvements in enforcement, and delighted with the officers, and also for this continuous improvement reports, which I think are highly helpful and very instructive, and in my case, educative as well.
On 27B about enforcement, I think it would be an excellent item to be discussed on that little pink item that we have. So I don't know if the chair of planning is watching, but I might ask that he includes that on our next quarterly little update, and maybe the planning committee might want to discuss that too.
Chair, I shall report to him as soon as I possibly can.
Thank you, Chair. So not wanting to say the word governance and then invoke your right. So obviously we update the governance committee quarterly on the risks. In terms of the risks here, it's always a little difficult because obviously we're looking back at Q4 and we're updating slightly differently for the governance cycle. One of the things we said at the last governance is that we are going to review all the risks that have the unchanged score in the reds, because obviously the mitigation specified have either worked and the score needs updating, or they haven't worked, in which case they need to be removed because they're not a mitigation. So that should filter through to the Q1 figures that you get at the next sort of governance committee. Again, apologies, Chair. And there is an issue about how we report this back through the cabinet scrutiny sort of cycle, which we need to have a look and have a bit of a think about.
yeah, I take the point about it being slightly behind, but I guess that's not our remit. That's governance's remit to be up to date with the council's processes and procedures, whereas we're more talking about the strategic and the political points. So, yeah, I'm not sure it's necessarily a problem. We can still make our points regardless, can't we? Okay. Councillor Friends, am I bringing you in?
Thank you, Chair. SP 20, the percentage of household waste sent for recycling. Before I ask the question, just to clarify, my understanding is that it's determined on the weight. Okay, so based on the fact that obviously a lot of producers are reducing the size of packaging, etc., does the 50% target actually represent something achievable, or should we be looking at making that something different that better reflects the situation we're in?
I think we've had this a number of times, haven't we? That you know, our waste services manager would say that yeah, packaging is getting lighter and etc. etc. So that this is one of those targets we've talked about previously. That is it a good target or not? But if it's a national target, we kind of have to have it. And so, is it a pointless target?
I personally don't think so. I don't think I think we should have a target around recycling rates, and clearly the government is pushing us to improve our recycling rates, and they're giving us some grant funding to support that to happen. So, you know, we should definitely be setting targets, but understanding the point that's being made, that the packaging is getting lighter, and therefore it's harder to achieve. But we still should be achieving that and better, in my view.
But it's very difficult for the average person. Say that you know, producers are using 10 times less packaging because they get fined. We've then, as consumers, got to recycle 10 times more to stay still.
But yes,
on our measure that we're measuring ourselves against as a council.
True, but we're also we're as a country, we're recycling more food waste. We are doing. There was a report that went to cabinet around improving our recycling rates for blocks of flats and houses that are in multiple occupation. So yes, we're fighting kind of against the national trend, but we're also expected to perform better. So it's right to have a target, in my view, and we should be maintaining our position as exceeding 50%.
I guess in that point, then we have a problem. Because Q1 to Q2 to Q3, it's the only target, I guess, across all of our targets that is consistently going down. And so, if that's the case, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just having a debate. That would, on these measures, then arguably be the most problematic part of the council.
I haven't got the figures in front of me. I'm looking for them, but you know, it's a challenge. But we need to continue to work to improve our recycling rates, maintain and improve our recycling rates.
But that figure potentially doesn't accurately represent the situation that we're in. You know, we could be recycling more, but the tonnage as a proportion is diminished because of actions that are outside of our control. So, you know, by looking at these figures, you know, we're getting worse every single quarter, whereas actually the reality is the residents across the Dover district might be recycling more than ever.
Yeah, and that's my point. So, you know, they cut the waste by 10 times, and actually our residents are recycling 8 times more than they used to, but actually our numbers are going down. So our residents are doing a much better job than ever. Our campaigns to get them to recycle are really, really good, but the threat of a fine to a producer means that they cut their waste, and therefore it looks like we're going down and down and down. So it's something that we need to look at, isn't it? Councillor Rose, did you want to come in on this, or were you?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, please. What they've done in London is the council focused on HMOs where there's been environmental crimes going on and all sorts, because of the waste management, and focused on their licence being withdrawn if they don't start managing their tenants, and created recycled cultures. And it's worked fantastically well in Chelsea. Earls Court is amazing abundance of HMOs. Look at Tower Hamlets, an absolute, they're just giving up. So what we need to do is focus on the HMOs and the landlord responsibility, because you can withdraw their license.
So the report that went to Cabinet just gone was around using some of the grant funding that we get from providers, from packaging companies, to invest in an individual and a project to improve our recycling rates in HMOs and in flat blocks. So we know we need to focus on this, because this is a big area where our recycling rates are not where they need to be.
Landlords, ignore the tenants, go straight to land.
Okay. Given that we've just said maybe this is one of the most problematic parts of the council, we've just said maybe we should ask Ian to come along and it should be on our work programme. So, Councillor Richardson, when you said how many things should we have on the work programme, we've just added another one. But if we're going to say that this is a problematic area, we've just had something that's come to Cabinet. I think we should be a little bit proactive and get involved in that, shouldn't we? So, Ian Dudding should expect an invitation shortly to come along to scrutiny. Okay, was there anyone else that wanted to speak on this specific item? I think the next one might have some speakers. Go on, Councillor French.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Last one, I promise. On the risk register, the unauthorised use of generative AI, I just wonder what the council are doing in terms of the future as to adopting AI in some of our practices, and the fact that we use the Microsoft suite quite a lot. Does it not make sense to use Copilot and all of its management structures? Rebecca looks like she's going to answer.
I mean, Abby obviously would be someone to speak to for the detail on this. It's something that she's very on, but we do use Copilot. It's something that they are looking to roll out further. It's obviously balancing the risks and the benefits that you get with it. But if you have a chat with Abby, I'm sure she can wax lyrical on this.
Yeah. Okay. I think everyone's had something to say. Are we happy to note that report then? Yeah. Okay. Next one then, strategic performance indicators for 2026-27. Go again.
Me again, thank you. This report outlines the proposed changes to the suite of strategic performance indicators for 26-27. The recommended changes have come about as a result of the annual business planning process, where teams, heads of service and directors were asked to identify their priorities for this coming year, including the supporting risks, challenges and key performance indicators. The proposed changes are outlined in track changes with rationale in Appendix 1, which is from page 118, and then Appendix 2 on page 125 provides a clean version of the final proposed suite of indicators. The majority of suggested changes are to the area of housing and compliance. And again, I'm happy to take any questions or field them to the team here on any of the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Lushman, did you have a question? Or was that?
I'm just very pleased to have the new target for 006. Thank you.
Okay. Question or noting, was it? Yeah, okay, fine. Anything we want to say or add? I think we made our point clear, didn't we, when we proposed a change and it was accepted, and so all the others are operational, really, aren't they? We're fed into this and our recommendation was accepted, so we're happy. Okay. Noting, accepting, good. Okay, there you go, got away with that one. Excellent. Okay, text on to item 14, exclusion of the press and public then. I'll propose that we exclude the press. Councillor Friend is accepting. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, resolution has been passed to exclude the press and public. I would like to thank all those that have taken the time to watch the public part of the meeting. Please could I ask Democratic Services to end the meeting broadcast and confirm when this has been done.